You lived an entire life before turning 3 years old. You opened your eyes, heard voices, tasted food, and took your very first steps. Yet you cannot remember a single second of it. Most people assume the explanation is simple, that an infant's brain just isn't fully functional yet. But that isn't quite right, and the truth is far stranger. Your baby brain wasn't failing to record your life. It was actually recording everything. But something came along and erased it. Back in 1905, Sigmund Freud became the first person to formally name this phenomenon, calling it infantile amnesia. For a long time, scientists wondered if babies could form memories at all. In the 1980s, a psychologist named Carolyn Rovey Collier ran a famous experiment at Rutgers University. She attached a simple ribbon from an infant's ankle to a colorful mobile hanging over their crib. The babies quickly figured out that kicking their legs made the mobile move, and they loved it. When brought back days later, the infants instantly remembered and started kicking immediately. 2-month-olds retained that memory for days, while 6-month-olds held onto it for weeks. So infant brains can learn, store information, and recall it. Yet by adulthood, every last trace of those early years is completely gone. The first piece of this puzzle is purely structural. Deep inside your brain sits a small curved region called the hippocampus, which acts as the main engine for forming memories. It takes a live experience and encodes it into an episode you can replay later. In adults, the hippocampus works alongside the prefrontal cortex to store and retrieve these moments. But in infants, this entire neural network is severely underdeveloped. The connections are still under construction, and crucial gateways like the dentate gyrus aren't fully wired until somewhere between ages 2 and 4. Your infant brain could create short-term memories, but it lacked the biological machinery to transfer them into long-term storage. Yet that is only half the story, and what comes next is even wilder. In 2014, 2 neuroscientists in Toronto, named Sheena Jocelyn and Paul Frankland, proposed an idea that flipped memory research on its head. What if the exact process that builds your brain is the very thing that destroys your memories? During your first few years, your hippocampus generates brand new brain cells at a staggering rate, a process known as neurogenesis. These fresh neurons are essential for building the lifelong circuits you need. However, every time a new neuron plugs into an existing circuit, it disrupts the pre-existing connections holding your old memories. To test this, the researchers experimented on mice. When they artificially boosted neurogenesis in adult mice, the animals began forgetting things they had already learned. Conversely, when they slowed down neurogenesis in young mice, those infants held onto their memories far longer than usual. Your baby brain wasn't too weak to hold memories. It was simply too busy growing. The massive explosion of new brain cells literally overwrote your past. Your earliest memories weren't lost because they failed to save. They were destroyed because your brain was constantly tearing down old walls to build new rooms. There is another layer to this mystery, and it revolves around a psychological concept we take for granted: a sense of self. To form an autobiographical memory, where you exist as the main character in a story you can replay, you must first understand that you are a distinct individual, separate from the world around you. Developmental psychologists Mark Howe and Mary Courage discovered that before roughly 18 to 24 months, infants do not recognize themselves in a mirror. Place a small red dot on a baby's nose and stand them in front of a mirror. Before 18 months, they treat the reflection like another baby and reach toward the mirror. After 18 months, they touch their own nose. That sudden spark of self-recognition aligns almost perfectly with the earliest age from which autobiographical memories can survive. You can't remember being a baby because back then, there was no continuous you inside your head to anchor those experiences to. Finally, there is the crucial element of language. Psychologist Catherine Nelson pointed out that language does not just describe memories, it actively structures them. Before you could speak, your world consisted of raw sensory impressions, like sounds, textures, and light. But without words, those impressions had no mental framework to hold them together. Once a child starts talking and discussing past events with adults, their ability to retain long-term memories skyrockets. Language acts as the skeleton for memory. In fact, researcher Chi Wang at Cornell found that cultural background changes how far back memories go. In Western cultures, where parents frequently talk with kids about their day, first memories start around age 3.5. Among the Maori of New Zealand, where oral storytelling and personal lineage are deeply emphasized, first memories go back to age 2.5. In cultures that focus less on individual narrative, first memories start around age 4. Your earliest years didn't disappear for just one reason. Your hippocampus wasn't fully wired. A flood of new neurons constantly overwrote old circuits. You had no established sense of self, and you lacked language to give structure to your experiences. Every human who has ever lived shares this exact same black hole at the start of their life. Your brain wasn't failing you. It was doing something infinitely more important than holding on to the past. It was physically rewiring itself to build the person you are today.